It's time for our featured speaker, Bill Williams. And in January 2007, Bill Williams retired from the New York City Police Department after 20 years of distinguished service, retiring as Detective Sergeant. He was assigned to the Intelligence Division supervising counterterrorism investigations. Bill was a first responder on 9/11 and subsequently supervised a joint FBI-NYPD task force that investigated the attacks on the World Trade Center. Bill has received several hundred departmental and community awards during his career with the NYPD, including the Medal of Valor when he was injured in a gun battle with 4 armed adversaries. And he's been certified as a detective tactics instructor by the FBI and has graduated from their Officers Survival School. He has utilized his training to help provide instruction in defensive tactics for law enforcement officers at the New York Seibukan, okay, a traditional martial arts school teaching what?
Social Ishiru Jiu-Jitsu and Ishiru Karate.
Okay, thank you. And it's easy to read your own bio. In the New York metropolitan area since 1991. Bill currently resides on Camino Island here in Washington and continues to mentor a class of jiu-jitsu students in Vancouver, Washington. So without further ado, please welcome Bill Williams.
It's amazing what you can get on the internet right now. I'm surprised, actually. Now I know what I'm doing this evening. I'm free hawking, right? Is that what it's called? I say it differently, though. I'm from New York. We say free hawking, not free hawking. Okay. It's a little bit different. Okay. First of all, thank you for having me here as your guest. When I'm asked to do a speaking engagement, I'm usually asked to introduce myself, and during my introduction, give a little biography as to who I am. I've been given this a great deal of consideration lately. You will understand my response within the context of my message. I think it speaks to where we are as a country and more locally as a community. I'm nobody from nowhere. Now, I'm not stating that as some false modesty. I'm actually an accomplished guy, and I'm proud of who I am, I'm proud of where I come from, and I'm proud of the path that I'm on. So let me explain to you what I mean. I'm a kid from a working class neighborhood in Queens, New York. I come from very modest beginnings. As a very young man, I worked my way up through the ranks, starting as a bank teller, going to school at night, eventually being promoted to the operations manager at a national financial institution. I later became a civil servant, a New York City police officer, and I worked some of the toughest neighborhoods in New York City. I had a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. I don't miss the circus, but I certainly miss some of the clowns. I was one half of one of the most highly decorated teams in the history of the department. I received several hundred commendations, including the Medal for Valor for a shooting incident in which I engaged in gunfire with 4 armed adversaries, and I was grazed in the head during the gun battle, which my grandmother says explained a great deal. I was later promoted to an investigator in the Detective Bureau, investigating sex crimes initially, and then robberies, before I was promoted again to sergeant, a frontline supervisor. As a sergeant, I was assigned to the Intelligence Division, and was a first responder on 9/11, and that was a day and the days immediately thereafter that changed my life forever. I was handpicked to supervise a team of FBI agents and NYPD detectives that conducted terrorism-related investigations relevant to terrorism and the changing security environment we all experienced on 9/11. I finished my career with the NYPD in the Intelligence Division, supervising a case team and later a surveillance team. We successfully investigated and subsequently convicted a would-be terrorist that plotted to blow up Herald Square. That was just one of the many covert investigations I was proud to have been involved in. While working, I finally completed my education. Then I went on to graduate school and received a master's degree in organizational leadership. Leadership is a topic I have always been passionate about. Since 1982, I've trained in the traditional Japanese martial arts, and I have a high grade and teaching license in both disciplines that I received directly from Japan. I own a small business here, a local gym in the community, where I teach my own martial arts classes. I mentor other martial arts schools, and I teach self-defense and awareness classes within the community. The last few years, I've been appearing around the country on various radio shows as a contributor and a guest host. I began doing commentary initially on topics, terrorism, police tactics, or community police relations. As you can imagine, this week I've been very busy. I was on a show this morning in Madison, Wisconsin, which is not the most friendliest environment for the police and people like us. So it's nice to be here with like-minded people. I now do a great deal of appearances related to political commentary as well as cultural issues. As some of you may have heard, and I often contribute here on KGMI, I've recently guest hosted the morning show a few times for Dylan Hanku, but I stay involved calling into the show when I'm not a guest. I do it with other shows I believe in. It's important for us all to stay involved in our communities and do what we can. I've accomplished, in my opinion, a great deal in my life. And I've accomplished almost everything I've set out to do, not because I'm a genius, not because I'm gifted, quite the opposite. Nothing comes easy for me. What's unique about my accomplishments are my tenacity and my work ethic. I'm likely one of the hardest people you've ever met, and I believe in what I do, and that's why I'm here tonight. So that's who I am. So back to my initial point, and as I look around this room, it's even more affirmed. I'm no one from nowhere because I'm just like every single one of you. I guarantee I can glean more information from this audience, regular, hardworking people, and come up with real solutions that will actually solve problems than any of these self-proclaimed experts that are running our country and those in the corrupt media that are shaping our political discourse. I choose to learn from those who are in the arena, running real businesses, creating real jobs, and raising families. I choose to rely on those with common sense and wisdom. I choose to learn from those people that have no other choice but to evaluate the results of their hard work. I say I'm no one from nowhere because I believe the answers we seek, the solutions we need in our families, in our communities, and in our nation won't come from the anointed elitists. The solutions will come from regular folks just like you and me. I look at the 24-hour news cycle and I'm literally disgusted most times. Like most of you, I've passed the point of being frustrated. I listen carefully to the so-called experts, the pseudo-intellectual elite, the phony expert commentators, the self-proclaimed academics, the Jonathan Grubers, the Barack Obamas. If you've heard my commentary, I speak of the so-called experts a great deal, the anointed intelligentsia that believe they know it all, and when you examine their resume, they have done very little outside of perhaps academia. They survive because they're unchallenged and they have an intentionally captive audience, and this is by design and it's tactical. If you listen closely to what many of these so-called experts are saying, they are less than impressive. I've never heard a group of people so enamored with themselves. They know everything, and they talk so much and say almost nothing at all. It's true. So many people today are shocked when they catch this president in almost a daily lie. Or when someone like Jonathan Gruber, the MIT professor and the architect of Obamacare, is exposed calling the American people stupid. See, I'm not surprised at all. In graduate school in New York, very liberal bubble, I know who they are. I've been around them my whole life. I sit back and I'm trained as an investigator. I sit back and I listen. I listen to what they say, and if you listen long enough, they will expose themselves. Here locally, for example, and it's widespread, Rick Larson admitted that despite his constituents not being in favor of Obamacare, he voted for it anyway. He knows better about how to run your life than you do. I find it despicable, I find it arrogant, and the hubris to me is staggering. But this is the way these elitists, these radical leftists think. They have contempt for us. Rick Larson, Jonathan Gruber, Eric Holder, Barack Obama, and countless others. They are miseducated. They are arrogant and they lack humility, and they lack the capacity to honestly evaluate themselves. They believe they are the smartest person in every room they enter. They refuse to evaluate cause and effect. They cover up and ignore evidence, and they will never admit when they are wrong and change direction. When they suffer setbacks, they lack introspection. They lash out and they behave like petulant children. Does that sound familiar? There you go. They are products of an insidious movement, a totalitarian movement that has to lie because when it's implemented, it will always fail, and it always does, and we have the evidence to examine and prove it. They follow a blueprint outlined in the book Rules for Radicals. They're Alinskyites. Saul Alinsky wrote, "The revolutionary must appear mainstream and non-threatening to the people. However, we must make people feel so frustrated, so defeated, so lost, so futureless in the prevailing system that they are willing to let go of the past and take a chance on our ideas for the future. To make this radical change, this revolution to occur, they have to orchestrate divisiveness. They have to promote fear and create enemies." What we are seeing is an intentional balkanization and division of our country into smaller groups because they know united we stand and divided we are falling, and very, very rapidly. That's why when they promote the idea that women only care about abortion and birth control, Hispanics only care about illegal immigration, and blacks only care about black and brown issues, whatever those are. Saul Alinsky also wrote about working within the system, not outside of it. It has taken them generations, but they are now in control of academia, the media, and they are on top of our government. Barack Obama is not a legal scholar. There is a photo of him teaching at a blackboard that they refer to all the time about his role as a law professor. He is teaching Alinsky tactics. If you zoom in, you can see what he's writing. It is a diagram right from the book. Don't let them lie to you. This radical leftist ideology is a fallacy. It is destructive. It is best suited for a discussion, perhaps in a classroom or in a Seattle coffee shop, or a circle of weed-smoking teenagers. It's merely hypothetical utopian fantasy. But don't dismiss it, because in practice, it is totalitarian, it's destructive, and it is dangerous. We must understand that these anarchists that are on the outside, who we see in our street today, protesting in Seattle, that seek to destroy our system of government, are the same as those with like-minded views on the inside. Those radicals who are now inside the system, who are now pulling the strings, fueling the fire, are the same as the Occupy Wall Street crowd. They are like-minded. They are exactly the same. Remember the quote from this president's former green energy czar and admitted communist Van Jones, who stated, "I'm willing to forego the cheap satisfaction of the radical pose for the deep satisfaction of the radical ends." Listen to what they say. They will expose themselves every time. We have the results of this mindset and ideology manifesting as lawlessness in our streets going on today. All around our country, we are seeing the results of this blueprint for fundamental transformation. The radical left took this issue in Ferguson, Missouri, a narrative that is an absolute lie, and it has been hijacked by the race hustlers, the pay-to-pray phony reverends, the radical leftists who seek destruction, and what's more commonly known as the fundamental transformation of our country. Our president and his corrupt attorney general, Eric Holder, and their personal advisor on race relations, Al Sharpton, have made incendiary statements about this incident. And they have intentionally had their thumbs on the scales of justice since right from the beginning. This president quoted Mike Brown's father, but only partially. See, some of us listen. What this president intentionally omitted from his statement was that the father who raised this violent criminal who robbed the grocery store and attempted to kill a police officer also stated that this issue in Ferguson and what we see is about racial profiling and police intimidation. I submit to you that there is absolutely zero evidence as to either of those charges. And keep in mind this president sent 3 representatives to the funeral of a gang-affiliated, drug-using violent criminal who attempted to kill a police officer and has yet to reach out to that police officer, Darren Wilson, who put his life in harm's way. To this day, they have not reached out to his family. I find that is a disgrace. There are some that ignore this evidence, and they would disregard what I'm saying here as hyperbolic. But we can easily look towards the fundamental transformation and acceptance in the mainstream, and sadly, someone who's been welcomed into the White House 82 times as of today, Al Sharpton. This man is a criminal, a race hustler, a tax cheat, a pay-to-pray reverend without a congregation. I've spent 20 years around the man in New York City. One of the highlights of my career was watching him get stabbed at an event, and I say that as a joke. But he deserved it. This is evidence of someone who has accepted the tactics of Saul Alinsky and the radical left. In his commentary on Ferguson, Dennis Prager wrote a fantastic article, and he entitled it, "We Have a Moral Divide and Not a Racial One." Someone sent it to me. It's fantastic, and it echoes some of the things that I've been saying and writing for years. He's just a little more eloquent. Our problems aren't racial, they are moral and cultural, and the narrative is hijacked by the radical left who seek destruction of our country masked as fundamental transformation. According to this cynical and phony black versus white divide way of thinking, there is just simply two conflicting ways of perceiving a situation, one black, one white. It is difficult to overstate how destructive and dangerous that is. It denies the very existence of the two pillars of civilization, objective truth and moral truth. You see, facts and evidence do matter. But according to the "it's all a matter of perceptions" view, there is no moral truth, only black perceptions and white perceptions. But once the facts come out, we are no longer speaking of perceptions. We're speaking of truth and falsehood. This all accords with the left's view of truth and morality. Neither exists. Just sit down and listen to the nonsense that comes out of the mouth of the radical left. The left is philosophically deconstructionist. For example, they believe Shakespeare doesn't say what he wrote. Shakespeare says what the reader perceives. The notion of original intent, as applied to the Constitution, is to the left farcical. We cannot know the original intent because it's a matter of perception. I reject that. And of course, for the left, there is no moral truth. Morality is entirely subjective. Good and evil are individual or societal preferences. No more, no less. Truth and morality is just a perception, one determined by an individual's race or gender. That is why, for the left, no one man can judge abortion, because no matter how late in the pregnancy, no matter what their views, they're a man, they don't have a uterus. It's all perception. It's all moral relativism, and I reject it. The radical left wants no judgment, just understanding. After all, there is no truth and only perceptions. The absolute lie and the lawlessness that is built on this hands up, don't shoot lie is disgraceful, and it's intentionally divisive. And now this president wants to throw $263 million at this issue to purchase body cameras and retrain the police, based on the counsel of Al Sharpton. I reject this moral relativism and this phony strategy by these leftists to keep us divided. I have a better catchphrase than this hands up, don't shoot. How about you pull your pants up and you don't loot? How about that? We tolerate this moral relativism, this concept that nobody is right or wrong, and that we should all tolerate the behavior of others even when we disagree about the morality of it. I believe moral relativism is killing us as a society. I believe there is a right versus wrong. I believe there is good versus evil, because I've looked into the eyes of evil. I've sat across the table from murderers, from rapists, from a would-be terrorist who sat and explained to me how he wanted to bathe in the blood of Jews and Americans. That is evil. It's time we recognize evil and we start becoming judgmental again and pointing our fingers and saying no. Metaphorically, I believe we're watching the amusing pattern of the water as it circles the drain to our own demise. Thomas Sowell once said, "I believe we're living in an era where sanity is controversial, insanity is just another viewpoint, and degeneracy only another lifestyle." So what is our remedy for this intentional strategy to keep us divided? Well, I'm going to give you a two-pronged solution that I have. The first prong is leadership. Ronald Reagan once said, "The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things." Leadership is something I've read about, I've researched, and pursued a graduate degree in. I'm passionate about it because I believe it's missing in most of our lives, in many ways. I believe we have a vacuum of leadership in all walks of our lives, in all our institutions and our families, certainly in our government, and that is what ails our great country today. I've always been repulsed by poor leadership. I never admired the good boss who was one of the guys, undisciplined, and someone who refused to lead. I sought out competency, and I admired the leader willing to do what was right, even at the expense of not being popular and well-liked. I tried to emulate that model when I was in a leadership position. I tried to be fair and consistent, but I chose to lead. As a young cop in a radio car, when another team wasn't pulling their weight, I didn't only blame that team, I blamed the supervisor for allowing it to happen. So what's a leader? Robert Greenleaf created a model of leadership 4 decades ago called servant leadership. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. Servant leadership is characterized by the desire to serve and empower followers, and the belief that the best way to achieve organizational goals is through developing the potential of our workers. The primary aim is service to others. A leader must understand that every person and every part of our universe has a function. As a leader, we must evaluate the resources that we are given, our team, and utilize their individual strengths and weaknesses to best accomplish our objectives. A true leader rejects this outdated, old, guru leadership, hero worship paradigm that creates a cult of personality, and it fails all the time. It's outdated. Even as conservatives, we cannot fall in love with these people we are going to choose to lead us. I'll give you a perfect example. I was a very big fan of Marco Rubio. There was nothing he said or did that I thought was wrong, up until the point where he lied in an interview that was in Spanish and contradicted what he said in the same interview in English. I had to walk away. We cannot fall in love with these people. They are leaders, and we have to hold their feet to the fire. True leaders, and this is something the president doesn't understand, because he is in a small, isolated group around him. Leaders understand that none of us are as smart as all of us. A true leader takes a personal proprietary interest in knowing and leading the team. This leads to the empowerment of the team member and the ultimate development of their potential. The atmosphere that is created by the servant leader fosters the environment where the team feels safe. The team needs to feel comfortable to collaborate, make mistakes, grow, and become more autonomous, and eventually see their roles as servants themselves. The team must know that the leader, while demanding, takes care of his people. The servant leader knows that to motivate the team effectively, he must enable, empower, and encourage each team member. The best test and the most difficult to administer is, do those served grow as people? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, and more likely to become servants and leaders themselves? A leader must show clarity and have the courage of their convictions. A true leader builds unity and is never divisive. A leader must know who they are and what they believe and why they believe it. They must be able to articulate their vision and their principles. And if a leader has moral clarity and they behave in a fair and consistent manner, then they will be respected even when there's disagreement within the team. A leader can delegate the task to accomplish the objective, but the responsibility for the team's success or failure lies with him alone. The true servant leader believes in these principles because they have seen them work over and over again. I want to take a moment to restate that. The true servant leader believes in these principles because they've seen them work over and over again. I repeat that because evaluating results and what works, examining evidence, this has become almost a lost skill today. And it's not only a skill, but it's a discipline. How often do we hear about decisions or public policy that is emotionally driven and has no basis in reality and no evidence of success? Too often I hear people discussing how certain policy decisions make them feel, instead of how it makes them think. We've forgotten the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is the gathering of facts, and wisdom, or what my grandmother used to call common sense, is the application of that knowledge and those facts and your education and applying that to solve problems. That's what's missing. We are witnessing an intentional ignorance of wisdom, and we are turning our back on evidence, and the things we know work time and time again. We tolerate and debate the almost nonsensical, and we accept this moral relativism and this vacuum of leadership in politics, but sadly we see it in our own families as well. Our nation, the world, and our communities, and our families need more leaders. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that I believe we're in a life and death struggle against the fundamental transformation of our country. I believe we're in a struggle for our values and our way of life. This president is just another in a long line of radical progressives who don't see or believe in the greatness of our country. But leadership alone isn't enough, which brings me to the second prong of my solution. I'm unapologetically a conservative, and I believe conservative is the answer to what ails this great nation. Conservatism is simply a way of living. It's a way of looking at the world honestly, evaluating facts, and applying wisdom and common sense. Conservatives are compassionate, but we aren't emotionally motivated. We reject blindly doing what we feel because we believe in consequence and personal responsibility. Conservatives know what we believe and why we believe it. It's based in historical facts, the rule of law, proven articulable results, and ethical and moral clarity. Unlike radical progressivism, conservatism is not an ideology. So if you're wondering what the heck is going on around us today, if you're confused, and when you look around and you cannot decipher the decisions being made because they make absolutely no sense, if you know in your gut that you're being lied to, and when you apply logic and wisdom and nothing makes sense, what you are experiencing is radical leftist progressivism in practice. This is what you get when you put unqualified people in positions of great responsibility, and they surround themselves with like-minded cronies and yes-men. They react ideologically, they react emotionally, and they ignore wisdom. This is what happens when we circumvent the rule of law. This radical transformation always fails. Call it what you want, and there's a lot of names it can be called throughout time, but it does fail. It is intentionally divisive. It intentionally creates demons, straw men, and a false narrative. It creates an enemy and outright lies because I submit they cannot survive in an arena of ideas, and the ends never justify the means. But sadly, you can read or go onto YouTube, and this is something that really upsets me. You can watch interviews with Bill Buckley and Thomas Sowell. Sadly, we are debating the same tired liberal policies and schemes we know fail. I watched an interview the other day from 1981. 33 years later, after that interview, we have more evidence that conservatism works and our ideas are better and more effective. However, we haven't done a good enough job leading, teaching, or articulating our conservative vision. We cannot no longer look towards politicians in Washington to do this for us. That paradigm is over. The media is not our friend. They are against us. They are no longer reporting the news. They are activists. They are complicit in this scam. For us to make a change in this world, we have to become the change. And that is important. And I know a lot of you feel the same way. I believe this country, right and left, is beginning to wake up. I believe we must become part of the solution and reject the nonsense we know is wrong. We have to have the courage to point our fingers and say, no, this is wrong and I reject it and this is why. I believe in my heart, united we stand, because the evidence is divided we're falling. Alexis de Tocqueville was a philosopher who studied this great nation. He accurately stated, when the past no longer illuminates the future, the spirit walks in darkness. And I believe we walk in darkness today. Many of us. Not all of us. All the so-called experts want to tell us what we need to do, what the solutions are, and what's politically expedient. They want to reinvent the wheel. President Reagan articulated his solutions back in 1977. His words are still prescient and loudly resound today. The solutions to our problems are simple, but they take courage and wisdom. You tell me if this short paragraph written by President Reagan can exactly be applied to what we face today. President Reagan said, "Our task now is not to sell a philosophy, but to make the majority of Americans who already share that philosophy see that modern conservatism offers them a political home. We are not a cult, we are members of a majority. Let's act like it and let's talk like it. The job is ours and the job must be done. If not by us, who? If not now, when? Extreme taxation, excessive controls, oppressive government, competition with business, galloping inflation, Frustrated minorities and forgotten Americans are not the products of free enterprise. They are the residue, the failure and residue of centralized bureaucracy of government by a self-anointed elite. Our party must be based on the kind of leadership that grows and takes its strength from the people. And our cause must be to rediscover, reassert, and reapply American spiritual heritage to our national affairs. Then, with God's help, we shall indeed be a city upon a hill, with the eyes of all people upon us. These words and his vision resonate as loudly today as they do back in 1977. I believe our path is finally being illuminated, and we have the potential for a new morning in America. I'm hopeful because I know there is more of us than there are of them. Please stay involved. Please do what you can. Please help educate others, because ultimately we are who we protect and who we stand up for. This isn't about them, it's about us. God bless all of you, and God bless these United States of America. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm supposed to stay up here and answer questions, or...
If anybody has any questions or comments, now's the time. All you've got is undivided attention.
Come on, hit me. Good.
You ever speak to homeschool groups?
You know, I haven't, but if you'd like me to, I would. I have no problem with it. I think homeschooling is terrific, because if my daughter's a New York City school teacher right now. She just finished her graduate degree, and she's teaching. And quite honestly, I'd be frightened to send my child to school in most of these schools now, not even just in New York, but here. And not safety-wise, I'm talking academically, we're failing our children. They're not equipped, you know, so. Yes?
What brought you from New York to Camino Island?
My wife is a flight attendant for American Airlines, and she stayed in New York for me. Her family's all from out here. She's from Arlington. So I figured when I retired, there's a 20-year retirement, I'd come out here, and she told me, you know, it's always sunny and mild here, so I believed her. There was a gentleman who stood up if you wanted to ask a question.
I just want to say thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Is this similar, the speech you gave tonight, similar to what you gave to Madison, Wisconsin? Because I have relatives there.
Yes. Here's the thing. I was on a show this morning, and I didn't give a speech this morning. I just made a radio appearance, a 2-hour appearance in the morning on Morning in Madison, which was interesting. And then later on in the Vicki McKenna show, there was someone who stood in with her. And we basically spoke about body cameras and the police tactics and some political stuff that's going on today. I'm who I am. If you've heard me on the radio, you'll hear the same thing I say on KGMI is the same thing I say in Madison, Wisconsin. I refuse to change, and you know, I'll take the fire because I know who I am and I know what I believe. And I've learned that I like who I am. I'm an absolute imperfect individual. I'm still striving to be better than I was yesterday, but I don't change my message because I believe it. Yes, go ahead. You can go again.
Would you consider running for political office?
You know, people ask me that all the time, and I'll tell you, if you want to contact me, you can reach me on Facebook on Bill Williams, and I write a lot. And I've had a couple of posts recently go viral, especially about this Marysville shooting. My posts are open to the public, which has been a challenge because I had someone try and shut down my business. One of the tolerant left who didn't like my, wanted to get me fired from there. So, and when she got me on the phone, I pretended I wasn't me, so I took my own complaint, so that was kind of fun. You can, and also two Bills on Twitter. Here's my answer, and I get that a lot, and this is what I'm getting to. I think politics is an absolute snake pit.
Yes.
I learned that years ago doing dignitary protection for a lot of these politicians. I had the privilege of being very close to a lot of people. Like one of my favorites was Chuck Schumer. There's a man who cannot get out of his own way if there's a microphone in the building. Would I consider it? I don't really think so. I don't think being a leader from the inside is necessarily what I need to do. I think I think we can make more change from the outside. I don't know that I could raise that much money, survive the scrutiny, and not compromise who I am to survive in that arena. So that's my answer. I don't think I could do it. New York City and the New York City Police Department is a huge bureaucracy. And I don't do very well being politically correct. And I don't mean being rude, but I don't play politics very well. If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And I'm not going to compromise who I am, because at the end of the day, I have to put my head on the pillow at night. You know, so that's important to me. Yes?
My name is Phil Morgan. Locally, I'm known as Clean Phil.
Phil, it's nice to finally meet you. I recognized your voice, by the way, from and you are very clean.
I'm going to make this statement. I want you to comment on my statement. In my mind, there are three political parties: the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, and Washington, D.C. The third party corrupts the other two.
You know, I know the point you're trying to make, absolutely. You know, you get to Washington, I don't care how idealistic you are. I think once you get into that bureaucracy, once you get into the routine, I think you have to compromise to go along to get along, or they will destroy you. That's why I don't think I could ever do that, and that's why I say no. Nothing is 100%. Would I consider it if the circumstances? I would be ignorant to say no, but I don't think I could survive in that arena. I do agree with what you're saying, but I don't think that's our fight. I don't think it's Democrat and Republican anymore. I think it's progressives, those who want to circumvent the rule of law, and conservatives. And we're called the far right. No, we're the constitutional right. We have to take back the lingo. We're the constitutional right. I'm not the far right. As a matter of fact, to me, Republicans are in the middle now. That's the middle. Whatever that is, as deplorable as it is, that the mushy middle is Republicans, the GOP. Conservatives are the right and the left. They're out of their mind. Go ahead.
I just want to comment on something he said. He doesn't want to run for office. He's really doing the best thing right here.
Oh, yeah.
Any one of you, in fact, all of us in this room, have influenced, the Tea Party group has influenced the Republican Party and energized people all over this country. And that's what's doing the job. And I think my position on Ferndale School Board, I'm actually weak there. But it's the people in Ferndale that make the difference.
Well, that's my message. I'm just like any one of you. All of us have to do something, whatever it is. You know, you measure two people and each one says they're giving 100%. It's not the same result, but if they're giving 100% and doing what they can, that's really all that matters. I go on the radio, I speak out, I make speeches, I contribute. This is what I can do. Yes. Dennis, right?
Yeah. But talking, you know, I believe a lot, I can tell what you're saying, speaking. But what's the plan to get it done? I mean, what you're doing, like you said, is necessary. It means you need to fire up the grassroots. But, Thomas Jefferson even said, you know, we need a revolution every 20 years. Okay? What has happened with the Liberal Party when the bad guy, Obama, friend,
Eric Holder?
that blew up.
I'm sorry. Bill Ayers.
That guy. Okay, he was you know, radically blowing things up, and then he got talked into the situation of saying we can do this better. We can have a bloodless revolution.
Absolutely.
By using
getting on the inside.
Well,
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they started using ecology and stuff like that. Okay, that was their plan. And one of the things that I see they did was they got into the schools and started years ago, like 40 years ago, getting into the schools and teaching the minds of mush to now they've got the president.
Absolutely. Well, listen, they are indoctrinating people.
Right. We need
absolutely.
to reverse.
But see, that's your answer. You just came up with the answer. Education, speaking to each other. Some of you here are older than I am. Now look, being politically active, have you ever seen a time in the last 6 years that more people are reading the Constitution or talking about the Constitution or talking about Bill Buckley or Thomas Sowell or Charles Krauthammer or some of these conservative icons, are they talking about conservatism? Do they even, or they're more politically active? I believe Barack Obama will be the greatest gift to conservatism ever. Will there be pain in the interim? Absolutely. And he's not done yet. He is not through, he's just starting. But I do believe education, speaking out, staying involved. I love some of the ideas. You folks that are teaching in the schools and your rapid response team. Whatever you can do, you've got to be creative and get involved. Posting on Facebook, posting something on Twitter, talking to your friends, educating your children, bringing your children to an event like this so they can hear this stuff. How many kids are blank slates? They hear these things and they retain them, and maybe you'll turn. I have a friend of mine, great compliment. He thinks I'm like a big shot. He thinks that like I'm a big shot and because I'm on the radio. But he wants to be involved. He wants to be a politician. He wants to be the president. He reads all the time. He's reading Thomas Sowell's books right now. The kid's 13 years old. To me, that's inspiring. So that's the key, educating each other. And I want to just mention this because this happens all the time. Be careful where you get your information from. We have a tendency to see something that fits into our narrative. We draw a conclusion and we work backwards to support that conclusion. You can't do that. You have to become an investigator, and what an investigator does is they look at evidence, and you cite that evidence. You have to know where your source comes from. People send me things all the time, I don't take information from blogs and things like that intentionally until I check it out and source it. Because people are passing anything around, and there's no sourcing whatsoever. In academia, you have to source everything you do. You have to justify where that information comes from. You have to know who you're speaking about. Joe in his basement is not a credible source. He may be correct, but you have to know, and one mistake, you lose your credibility. And I see a lot of things passed around by like-minded people, and we're so quick to be the first to get that off. We make mistakes, and we have to do it better than the left, because the left is watching. They're waiting for us to make mistakes, and they're going to capitalize on them. They are insidious, and they have a different agenda. And their agenda is to destroy what we love. That's a fact. And the Democrats are not the left anymore. Liberals that I grew up with, listen, when I first got out of school and I registered to vote, I was a Democrat. I didn't know any better. I was a clean slate. My family was basically apathetic. And you're in a bubble, and I didn't know any better, but nothing made sense to me. We have to know who we are. We have to define and teach each other what we are and where to get our information from. You can't just believe all this nonsense. You have to kind of source it. And I want to caution some of you on that, because I see it all the time. So, yes?
Not to read more. I just started reading Cheryl Atkinson's book.
Right on.
Which is just...
Go against the grain.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. But, and for me personally, because you've been involved in the Tea Party since the beginning and stuff, and actually it was just a couple weeks ago, and I said, you know what? I'm done doing the left progressives,
Yep.
and I said, we have got to start talking to each other. So and it's really hard to between yourself to, instead of saying, well, you're a nutcase in a nice way, you believe this, what do we have in common? And you find so much that you have in common.
That's right.
With people on the other side. And if you can connect there, you're right, stay away from the way
Absolutely.
stuff that everybody's emailing out. It's
Look,
like, really?
You're absolutely right. And here's the thing. The president is a Muslim from another country. Let's say he was a Muslim. Does it really matter? I don't believe it. And honestly, I could care less. Was he born in another country? No, he wasn't. I'm telling you as a fact. There is evidence to support it. I've done background investigations. That man could not have been gotten to elected office because someone would have checked this. You have to know how these things work. And if he was a Muslim, does it really matter if he's a good and decent person?
No.
Who he believes? You don't know what I believe and what's in my heart. I don't know your faith. It is a waste of our time to discuss that. And here's the reality. he's not going out of office. We are not impeaching him. It's not happening. As much as we would like it, it is not going to happen. He is going to be there for another 2 years, so what do we have to do? We have to hold the GOP, and we have to hold them accountable. That's what we need to do. We have to call for censure. We have to call for defunding him, working within the Constitution. And here's another thing. Impeachment is a punishment. He is never going to be removed from office. We might as well face that now. As much as I hate it, I didn't vote for the man. I know who he is. I've read his autobiographies. I studied him. I've studied Cloward and Piven. I've studied Alinsky. I've studied all of these things. I grew up with people who went to Columbia. I know who he is. You go to the Upper West Side, he is nothing unusual. The Upper West Side of Manhattan, he's typical. He's unimpressive. He's an empty suit. Having said that, he's our president and we're stuck with him. So what do? All of these arguments we get involved in back and forth, they're a waste of time. Yes, my friend.
So we hear this word, the Marxist dialectic.
Yep.
And the sense I have is that if the progressives can keep us reacting to them, they keep us moving towards them. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do and encourage other people to do is to make them react to me. And that moves them towards my position. Do you want to enlarge on that at all? Or?
Listen, the Socratic method of teaching is basically asking questions. Instead of going back and forth in a debate on Facebook, which is absolutely pointless, okay? You're not going to convince anyone. You're just not. I don't debate and I don't argue with anyone anymore. I post my thoughts and my commentary. But I don't debate, and quite honestly, I have a friend of mine who is Harvard educated. He's one of the top chemists in the country. He got one of his chemistry degrees at UC Berkeley, so you can imagine what he's like. I deleted him. He's gone. When he started calling Sarah Palin filthy, disgusting names, I said, Alan, I can't have a conversation with you anymore. We disagree, and you're out of here. That's it. I'm done. The Socratic method is basically asking questions. Tell me what you believe and why you believe it. Convince me, because I know what I believe, so what you're doing is moving people to you. That's the way we do this. You're not going to just say you're wrong, this doesn't work. So we've got to be smarter than them. We've got to find a better way. And for me, I try to find common ground, like you said. And most of us, you know, in real life, outside of politics, most of us share the same interests and want the same things. We're in a very polarized time right now, and it's intentional. Believe me, everything this president does is for a reason. It is by design. People who think he's stupid or a puppet or any of these things, you are short-sighted. He is tactical, he is strategic, and he's following a blueprint. It's documented. It's in writing since 1965. Read Cloward and Piven's statement about overwhelming the system. It's boring. It's drivel. It doesn't work. It's Marxism. It's socialism, whatever you want to call it. But I don't even, you know, now you've got people who want to debate what exactly is Marxism, what exactly is socialism. I'm against big government. How about that? I'm against these masterminds telling me that they know better in how to run their life than me. How come none of these solutions ever resolve a problem and always cost me more money? These are basic questions. And how come the problem is still there tomorrow, usually exacerbated? So, yes.
Did I hear you wrong? You're saying these people are telling me they know better how to run their life.
No, they know better how to run your life than you do. That's what I believe.
That's what I wanted you to say.
Absolutely, and it is the truth, and they believe that.
Run our lives.
Listen, they believe it. If you talk to them, I don't know how many liberal friends you have, but I have some. They really believe they're smarter than you. They really believe when you talk about the Constitution and the things we're talking about tonight, they'd sit in here and go, oh, they think you're hokey. They think you're out of your mind. That's okay. I disagree.
How has the incidents like, say, down in Seattle, Ferguson, and this administration been, how has it affected local and nationwide law enforcement?
You know, law enforcement right now Speaking at the federal level, everybody is bunkered down. Nobody wants to do anything. No one is going to be aggressive in investigations or prosecutions because you've got Eric Holder's at the top, and that Department of Justice is absolutely compromised and corrupt. I know guys who are federal agents on terrorist task forces who are surviving this administration. Locally, I believe we've set back race relations. I really do. Some of the comments I'm seeing, things are more divided now than they ever were. We have to remember this, and I spent 20 years in some of the worst neighborhoods in the nation, at a time when crack was epidemic, and there were zombies and people dying in the streets. Violence there were 2,000–3,000 homicides a year in New York City. There are more of us than there are of them. The small minority we're seeing, this filth that's going around, this Occupy Wall Street filth, they are a small minority within a minority. But they're organized, and they're effective, and they're dangerous. What do we do? You know, I think law enforcement here they're reactive, not proactive. I think they're tremendously undermanned. I think that what's going to start to happen, because I'm seeing it happen, is we're going to go from a proactive way of doing things back to a reactive community policing way of doing things. That's what you're going to hear. You're going to start hearing about how broken windows theories don't work. And if anyone doesn't understand what that is, I'll explain it. But you're gonna go back from being proactive, because the police are an occupying army, because they're the problem, back towards having potted plants on a corner with their hands in their pocket who don't want to do anything. And who suffers? You and I. That's the truth. Yes?
So we've seen a lot of sort of up-arming of police around the country, and in fact in Ferndale we've got some kind of military assault vehicle. Can you say anything about that?
I think that there are some, first of all, here's what I think is moronic. If you're on a SWAT team and you're doing a search warrant and you're wearing a mask and camo and you're from the Bellingham Police Department, you look like a moron. There's no reason for it. I've sat out more search warrants than these guys have executed. I've never worn a mask. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for you to wear camouflage clothing. It sends a bad message. There's no need for it. We don't do it in New York. Some of these tanks that I see marching into crowds, it depends on how they're deployed. Sometimes it's for crowd control. Nobody's firing missiles into the crowd. That's a fallacy. Tear gas being fired from these things in Ferguson, I think they did a good job breaking that up. A lot of times you go into the crowd with force and you drag people out. Don't believe this narrative of it's a very libertarian argument, and it's really gotten a little bit out of control, and I reject it. And I'll have the conversation with anyone because it's not true, because I've done this work myself. The police are not the problem. They're not an occupying army. They've had sniper rifles forever. They do not have machine guns. They do not have they don't have grenades. This is a lie, and it's being perpetrated by people who are, to me, starting to sound very leftist. These radical libertarians are against everything. They're for the wrong things. Let's let drugs be legal and put them on your block, just not mine. But when it comes to police and law and order, they're against everything. And I just don't see it happening. Search warrants. If you have to understand how a search warrant is gotten. If they're banging into someone's house and conducting a search warrant, first of all, an investigator has gotten that information and brought it to his supervisor, who's brought it to a prosecutor, has brought it to that prosecutorial supervisor, and then has brought it before a judge. Getting a search warrant is not an easy thing to secure, especially in front of that judge. You make a mistake, that judge, and most of them are so arrogant in their court because they are kings in their own court. You make a mistake, even on paperwork, they'll throw you out of there. I've been threatened with I've been threatened to be held overnight until I got my paperwork right as a young cop. Okay? It's not just the police crashing into people's homes. They have search warrants. There's judicial review. And when they go in there, I'm sorry. But when I go into a house, you have to have overwhelming force. Controlled, but overwhelming force. What is the alternative? Do we knock on the door and tickle you? It's silly. It's nonsense. And it's not what happens. Again, nobody goes to work and wants to hurt anyone. Do you think what happened to this guy, Darren Wilson in Ferguson, his life is destroyed? Where does he live? Where does he work? How does he walk the streets? Just think about yourself in that position. Do you think anyone wants to go through that? I've been in a grand jury, and I've raised my right hand, and I've had them as a young cop. I'll never forget it. I had 2 years on the job, and I was in a situation just like Darren Wilson. It was the first shooting I was involved in. The individual was unarmed because his machine gun was in the car. But we wrestled back and forth for my gun, and he was shot in the chest. He was 17, and he was wanted for a homicide. None of that mattered. And when I raised my hand in the grand jury, and they read me my rights, that was a sobering moment for me. It was probably one of the scariest moments of my life. You have the right to remain silent. I'm like, wait a second, that's what I say. None of these guys want to go to work and do this. Now, do we have rogue cops? Absolutely. I put handcuffs on cops that wore my own uniform as a supervisor. Guys who were bad guys. But the police are representative of our communities. They come from our communities, and there's good and bad in all of us. And some people slip through the cracks. Do I believe they should be held at a higher account? Absolutely. You're a dirty cop, I believe you should be prosecuted to the maximum of the law because you violated an oath. Don't believe this narrative. And again, it's being distorted. Again, there are some things that I'm all for. Again, when I see a SWAT team dressed in camo and wearing a mask, I think to myself, what is the purpose of this? It makes no sense. Write Sheriff Elfo. Ask him why. Sheriff Elfo, why are they wearing masks? Why are they wearing camo? It makes no sense to me. Is that for their protection? What are they hiding? There's no reason. In New York, we have our names and our shield number on our coats. On your outermost garment, your name and shield number must, because you're accountable to the public. And even when you're in SWAT gear, it's stitched onto your back and your front. And rightfully so.
Well, it's good for TV.
It is. Looks good, I guess, right? Yes.
Comment of sorts, I guess, Kathy, what you're saying. A little over 50 years ago, we had this guy as the president. The Democrat Party probably wouldn't be the Democrat today the way they are. Said something to the effect, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for a country. It seems today to be ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for yourself.
Yeah, I think we're a selfish society. I think we are selfish. I think that we are becoming a narcissistic society. I do. I worry about it. I see these kids that they don't. When was the last time someone, I know a lot of you don't take buses and trains, but when was the last time a kid got up and actually gave his seat to a woman? Or, you know, they gave their seat to someone instead of standing themselves? I don't see that anymore. In the gym, yeah, or open a door, or say please. Do you know? They don't do it. And you know, when I go to the grocery store, I say please, I say thank you. I don't like when people talk to me here. We don't talk anymore. We do our thing. It's head down and we go. But when someone says to me at the bank when I'm cashing a check, "Hi, how are you? What do you got planned for today?" I jump like, "Who are you?" You know. But having said that, people say to me all the time, "You know, you're very polite," and I'm like, "Well, thanks." Saying thank you, saying please, opening the door, these basic manners aren't being taught in school anymore. I look at an entire generation of kids with neck tattoos and no manners. I mean, these kids aren't being taught anything. You know, when I was a kid, I remember cursing on the avenue. And I was running around, I was 11 or 12 years old, effing this and effing that, and a woman came flying out of the bank and slapped me right across the face. I'm like, and she grabbed me by the hair and shook me around. I'll never forget it. And you know, as I ran away giving her the finger, I learned the greatest, you know, honestly, we don't do that. And I'm not advocating anyone hit my children, because I wouldn't want it. But I'll tell you, there was an ethic where you would get in trouble at home more than you would out in the street. Go ahead, let the cops bring you home. What they do to you there is only this much of what you're going to get when you're home. And I don't, you know what, however you raise your children is fine. I only had to hit my daughter once. I spanked her in her butt once, thank God. But we have to take things away from these kids. We're teaching them nothing, you know, and it's manners. You know, we don't do that anymore. So, and you're right, I think it is a selfish society. I think we're narcissistic. I think and in some ways, you know, people are busy. Times are hard. I know they want to tell us how good the economy is, but people are so busy working, trying to make a living right now, I think a lot of this stuff goes to the wayside. So, but it isn't an excuse. We have to teach manners.